welcome to the Deal Final Corner. So this is your weekly property talk show brought to you by Property Filter, hosted by myself, Guillaume Black, your favorite Frenchman. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Property Filter. As you know, it's the UK's highest rated platform to find deals, and we're on a mission to empower our property investor and deal sourcer members to find yet again another 1,000 deals this year, thanks to the Property Filter blueprint. And really the purpose with the Deal Final Corners is to give you more and best of the available resources by inviting expert guests who will share with you the latest and the most current strategy, tactics, and secrets about what actually works right now in terms of finding and making deals and the reality of systemizing and running a high-performance business in property. So it really is my pleasure today to introduce you my good friend Raj BERI on today's Deal Final Corner. So Raj is a seasoned property investor with a unique background in genetics, having spent over 20 years working for AstraZeneca, and many years ago, transitioning to full-time property investment. Raj currently, really mastered the art of maximizing the rental income through buy-to-lets and HMOs through a combination of different strategies. He's also coaching and helping other people getting on this property investment career, and he's also a co-editor at YPN magazine. So it's a good person to be a friend with. So I'm really happy to have you on the Deal Final Corner today, and what you can expect from this episode. So Raj is going to tell us about cash flow versus ROI, like what comes first, and how you can turn humble buy-to-lets into high producing income. What can what do you need and what can be learned, and then we'll have some time hopefully for some exclusive Q&A. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about Raj talk today. So please give a massive Property Filter virtual welcome to Mr. Raj BERI. Thank you.
So yeah, I am co-editor of YPN, but you can't get in through the back door if you want your article in there. We have due process that we all go through as a team, but you can certainly send me your ideas and your projects, and everything gets looked at. So I guess thanks for the intro, Guillaume, and obviously I'm one of the super users of Property Filter, because a lot of people who are on Train with Simon, they all use Property Filter, and as a coach, I was expected, I think, when it was first launched, to get to grips with it, which I more or less have now, and it's a great tool. So I'm going to tell you about something a bit different today, and it's one of those approaches that, if you know me at all, I'm very straight talking. So I never speak of things like secret sauce, brand new strategy. Actually, I don't think there are any brand new strategies at all. Everything just gets tweaked, relabeled, rehashed. And that's from 15 years of actually since I started doing it. But this one is largely forgotten. And it is the humble buy-to-let. And you're probably already thinking, well, there's no way you can maximize. But I'm going to show you how I've been doing it for well over a decade. And as far as I know, there's only I know three other people who we collaborate just on information share. And I think it's a valid path to financial freedom when you look at some of the eye-watering costs that people spend on converting their properties to 6-bed all-en-suite HMO things at 100K plus development. Don't know why that didn't go forward. Let's try again. So I'm going to get one thing out the way right at the beginning, okay? And I do apologize. This slide is repeated twice because you really need to write this down. And I'm happy. There's not many words on it. I'm happy to give you a minute. This LHA strategy is not social housing. I'm going to pause. I know there's a lot of words to write down there. This strategy, and I want to say it again, the methodology that I'm going to describe is not social housing. Okay, we got that one out the way. Okay, so with that in mind, yeah, thank you, Guillaume. You've written it down. I don't want anybody coming back to me when they contact me say, I loved your social housing strategy. It isn't. These are all private rented sector tenants. Properties are not being handed over to charities, housing associations, councils, or other organizations. I and my letting agent, we manage the whole process. So not social housing. So Guillaume kindly gave me an introduction. My background isn't property. As he rightly said, I have a PhD in genetics. So I'm totally suited to be a property investor full-time, not. But obviously the jobs come and go. I lost my job about 12 years ago at AstraZeneca, where I've been for 22 years. And sadly, reluctantly, I became a full-time property investor because I really loved what I did as a scientist. So I've been a full-time investor now for 15 years, of which 11 of those have been full-time. I am a coach and mentor. Most of the coaching and mentoring I do is for Simon Zucci at PIN, and I've probably coached and mentored one-to-one probably 120 plus people, either with Simon or myself. I don't really run training until recently on the LHA strategy. I am co-editor of YPN magazine, and it's something I really love being involved in. Thankfully, I don't suffer from shiny penny syndrome, because I see different articles every single month landing in front of me, and I could easily be chopping and changing every month, but I'm quite disciplined like that. Also, a bit of background, I've worked for the NRLA for 3 years, so I'm a bit of a regulatory geek. Locally, I'm an accredited landlord. What that should tell you is that the local council can inspect any of my houses upon request to make sure that they're being run properly. And I actually welcome that into the industry just to drive out the rogue element. My focus has for the last 15 years been buy-to-lets and HMOs, and particularly sub-models within those, which we're going to come on to. So for buy-to-lets, it's called the LHA strategy. And for HMOs, my main focus is student HMOs. Okay, so that's it. There's no more journey, no more story, no nothing. We're going to jump straight into the content, which is what I tend to do. But I want to touch base on just some background, because I don't know the audience, and I like to make sure that everybody's on the same page before we dive deep. So if you're looking at cash flow, normally investors fall into two areas really. You'll either be someone who buys, develops, and holds for rental income. Alternatively, you'll buy, develop, and sell for profit. Okay, you'll fit in one of those, perhaps both. I'm on the left-hand side. I don't buy, develop, and sell. I buy, develop, and hold for rental income. It doesn't really matter which one you're in. The point is both are valid and both can give you financial freedom. Some people don't want tenants, either through agents or themselves, so they buy, develop, and they sell for profit. It's a perfectly valid thing to do. So my basic approach, as I like to call it, for the last 15 years has been that every unit I buy, and I only do small projects, has got to get to something we used to call no money left in. I think it's now got a lot, it's a B with a load of R's next to it these days, but we always called it no money left in. Or if you like, infinite ROI. What that term tells me on any deal is that I bought something well, I've added value, and I've been able to get all my capital out to reuse it on another project. And because you're doing that, it becomes infinite ROI. But there's a danger with this term infinite ROI, and I'm going to touch on it in a minute, okay? And then what do? Well, none of my money's in that property now, right? Because it's no money left in. Now I want to maximize my rental income to get towards financial freedom. I mean, it sounds pretty basic, this, but people often forget that actually this is how you build a portfolio. Even if you're using an investor's money, you're going to return that money one day, aren't you? So at some point, you're going to try and recycle your capital, whether you want to call it no money left in, infinite ROI, or B with a string of 4 R's probably on it, okay? So I wanted to just share that with you. And people often, certainly in YPN, say, well, there's dozens of strategies out there. Well, actually, I'm going to tell you there aren't, okay? If you're looking at recurring rental income, there are only 3. There have only ever been 3. And here they are. You'll be doing buy-to-let or HMOs or SA, 100% guaranteed if you're holding it for rental income. Within that, though, there are various submodels. Of course there are. So if you're doing HMOs, you might be in the student sector, professional HMOs, blue collar, and if you're really thick-skinned, you'll have 3 to 6 people who are all on benefits sharing an HMO, the toughest model, I would argue, okay? But at the top level, those are the 3 strategies. If you're going to hold it for rental income, you're going to land in 1 or 2 of those, or maybe all 3. I'm in buy-to-lets and I'm in HMOs. I don't do SA. This has been very familiar, Guillaume. You know this template? Of course you do. So if you look right across any of those templates, you will fit buy, develop, sell, buy, develop, hold. 100%, okay? Right at the bottom, there's one little humble mention, Guillaume, thank you very much for that, on buy-to-lets, okay? Which is a shame, because that's what I'm going to talk about. Some of the others are acquisition models, Okay, they're not really strategies that are going to generate you income. So lease options, it's an acquisition model. You're going to do something with that lease option to maximize your rental income, aren't you? I mean, it's just, I mean, you know, I've done a lease option, and most of the ones I've got in my portfolio I bought through the BRR model, or the no money left in. So I'm going to focus exclusively on buy to lets, and that's why I've highlighted it, because some of the others, like blocks of flats, people say, yeah, you could do buy to lets on those, but then people start throwing in service accommodation, which obviously you can do. And same with 1 to 2 bed flat conversions, you can do SA on those. So I'm going to focus exclusively on the 2-3 bed buy to let model, because that's what the talk is about. What we're really talking about today, for those of you who are interested, because the industry is bombarding everybody and saying that the only 2 high cash flow models out there when you're keeping the property are HMOs and SA. It's just not true. This strategy I'm going to tell you about has been forgotten. I've been doing it for 12 years. So I didn't train yesterday and suddenly I'm now telling you how to do it. No. I've got a portfolio of these. Okay. And the question central to what we're talking about today, for those people who are interested, is what if you want to keep your buy-to-let as a buy-to-let, with a buy-to-let mortgage, buy-to-let insurance, buy-to-let everything. And we're going to show you how I maximize my rental income, so at least I'm getting 20 to 30% return on investment. Obviously, my aim is to get to infinite, which I've already said, which tells me all my capital's been recycled. But as we'll come on to, recycling all your capital is just one step. You've got to maximize the rental income. And we'll show you that when I tell you a little bit about how I look at ROI and how people sometimes misread what ROI actually means. So we're going to do that right now. There's the ROI formula. It's not complicated. You look at your annual net income pre-tax, put it over what your total investment, what money has left your pocket, okay, for everything. The deposit, stamp duty, various fees, then you multiply it by 100, okay? That's your classic definition of return on investment. So what about infinite return on investment? Infinite return on investment, if you are okay with the term, means that your total investment, because you've bought well, you've added value, and it's now worth a lot more, is zero. You have recycled, remortgaged, whatever you want to call it, all your capital. That's what I go for. And it's what I've been going for the last 15 years. I don't JV, so you can imagine I have to buy really well because I'm reusing my money again and again, okay? I don't work with investors. Where the fun and games start is when you look at infinite ROI further. Here's a typical buy-to-let. Maybe you're getting £200 a month after all costs, maybe 300, okay? Obviously, it's infinite ROI, but are you happy with £200-300 positive cash flow a month? It's still infinite ROI. What if it was only 50 quid a month, but you've got all your cash out? Still infinite ROI. So I think the problems start when all your money's been recycled and the terminology then starts to fall a bit flat, because infinite ROI could be that you're making no rental income, yet it's still infinite ROI because you've recycled all your funds. So it is a very tricky one once you got all your money out. So would you like that in a buy-to-let, which is your typical kind of figures I see, maybe a little bit higher on the rental income, or what I do? And you can see that instead of the 200-300, I'm generating £700 plus with this LHA strategy. Still infinite ROI, it's that cash flow that's gone high. Yeah, so I want you to keep the two separate. Infinite ROI means you can reuse the capital, but obviously you want to maximize the rental income, okay? Otherwise, how do you think you're going to get to financial freedom? Capital growth won't do it. You shouldn't be spending capital growth. You should be reinvesting it. You should be spending rental income, okay? That should be putting food on the table, giving you your holidays, your fancy car, whatever it is that floats your boat. Rental income. That's what you live on. It always has been. For every business, it's cash flow. Cash flow is king. I'm sure you've heard of it, okay? And it's 100% true. Deal sourcing, maybe using a property filter, maybe you're going direct to vendor. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you've got to buy the right property, which you're going to hold long term. Then if you apply the infinite ROI model, you're going to have to monetize it at the back end, even when you've got all your cash out. And as I said a few minutes ago, you'll find that you'll sit in one of those three, or maybe all three. Okay, HMOs, service accommodation, short-term lets, or buy-to-let. Hope that's making sense. I just wanted to set the scene, before I dive into the more complexities. So what is the LHA strategy? So LHA, let's get the terminology right, because I see so many people getting this wrong, is local housing allowance. It's not local housing authority. It's local housing allowance. If that's a bit of a mouthful for you and you're challenged to remember it, just call it housing benefit. Just call it housing benefit. It's the same thing. Just like with HMOs, where I said there are multiple models, students, professionals, blue collar. So I'm going to describe to you the two models for the LHA strategy that I've been operating in the last 10, 12 years. I've called them very cleverly Model 1 and Model 2, okay? Because I'm simple. I'm a simple person, okay? And I follow simple terminology. I try to avoid acronyms like the plague where possible, okay? Because they don't help, okay? Model 1, which I'm going to tell you about today, is where you have two claimants, or sometimes I call them claimants, but basically they're two housing benefit tenants. They're going to claim welfare benefits. So in the industry, we call them claimants of housing benefit. So in this case, for Model 1, they are two individual people, okay? For Model 2, which is a little bit more complicated, there are still two claimants, two separate claimants, going to be claiming housing benefit, but they're from one family, okay? Obviously, I'm going to explain all this, okay? Model 1 is definitely the easier one to understand and the easier one to apply. And if this is going over your head and you're thinking, wow, this is brand new. No, it isn't. I learned it 12 years ago from my own mentor. It's not new. The name's changed. And if you're struggling because it's on the cusp of your tongue, but you can't, I've heard of this. It used to be called 2+2. Okay, that's the old name. It's no longer technically correct. Okay, so I just call it the LHA strategy. So the concept, well, it's very simple. Okay, these guys are going to be on universal credit, which is the new system for LHA, housing benefit. And there are going to be two of them, two benefit claimants in an unfurnished buy-to-let. Unfurnished, that's correct. Most of your buy-to-lets, if you're doing them, they'll be unfurnished, 100%. Okay, because that's generally what the buy-to-let model is. You let the house unfurnished. But the details, unfortunately, are not so simple, which is why the likes of PIN, lots of other training companies have dropped this methodology, because my experience has been that people who've attended the one-day workshops, which were held, I don't know, 8, 10 years ago, I've yet to come across one person who's implemented this, because unfortunately it's got too many moving parts. And I just don't think you can be sitting in a room for a day and then the next day you're out there, because you have to understand the LHA universal credit system. Obviously, we've got tenants involved. Find them, vet them, structure the LHA claims and the tenancy correctly. And then there's the ongoing management and troubleshooting. And there can be a bit of that for sure, but there is in HMOs and there is in SA. So I'm not going to sit here and say this is more complicated or less complicated. It's just different challenges. You know, I've got challenges with my student HMOs, which are not applicable to this approach, and vice versa, okay? So it's simple, but actually the details are not so simple. And here's the thing. For the welfare benefit system, for the LHA system, it's all about their entitlements. And who sets those entitlements for housing? The government. So there are rules. The government sets some rules of who can get what. And it's sometimes age dependent, gender dependent, lots of things, okay? But the entitlements for housing benefit are published. So you don't have to look at Rightmove and say, oh, what's the ceiling rent here? No, they're published. They're published. Gov.uk, type in universal credit, LHA rates, and you can download it. It's there, okay? And if you follow the news, they've just basically increased the LHA rate significantly, which is what's making some of me and my collaborators very excited. And you'll see from some of the case studies, I mean, some of these case studies I'm going to show you, they're tapping into HMO net cash flow. And you might say, I don't believe that. Well, you're going to have to trust me. I'm not an inexperienced guy here talking to you, okay? And I don't say things lightly. I back it up with proof, and you can go and do the same, and I'll show you. So let's look at model 1. I'm going to give you the example first, and the reason for the example is just so that I explain it first. And I'm going to use Nottingham, which is where I live. So this is your 2-bedroom, 2 up, 2 down, unfurnished, buy-to-let in Mr. Average, Mr. and Mrs. Average Street, and roughly the market rent locally here for that kind of thing, not in the worst area, not in the best, is around 750. Okay, if you want to push it, 795. Yeah, you can talk to agents in any city. You can get this kind of intel. If I put them into my model or model 1, then why is it I can get 1100? Well, that's pretty good. How's that happening? Okay, what's RAJ exactly doing? Well, we'll come on to it. So which one would you have? Everybody's going to put their hands up and say, I'll have the one on the right, but you're going to have to work harder for the one on the right. Oh, I don't want to do that. Well, don't do HMOs either then, and don't do SA either. In fact, don't do property, just leave it in the bank. Because my experience over 15 years has been, if you want to earn more than the average buy-to-let, you're going to have to work a bit harder than the average buy-to-let investor, okay? But if you're okay with your vanilla buy-to-let, getting your £200-300 positive cash flow, fine, stick with it, okay? But I'm not. I don't want 100 properties in my portfolio, so I've really squeezed every property to maximize the rental income because I don't want to have hundreds of properties. I don't have a huge portfolio, okay? But I am generating a lot of income per property. So I'm going to explain this in another way, and this requires audience participation, okay? So we're looking at just a diagram of an HMO. Bear with me. It's in Leeds because the figures are from Leeds, okay? And sorry about the cartoon. I had to design it with my own fair hands. It's a 4-bed HMO. There you go, B1, bedroom 2, bedroom 3, bedroom 4. It's got a couple of bathrooms, BR times 2. It's got a living room and a kitchen. It's a basic spec 4-bed HMO. And it's got 4 housing benefit or LHA tenants in there. The new rate for Leeds, if you know how to structure it, per room is £675 per month. Published. Go and check it on gov.uk. LHA with HMOs with LHA tenants are a tough model. Audience participation. I want you to all close your eyes. Okay? Yeah, do it virtually. Yep, all close your eyes. Right, you can open them. What have I done? I'll tell you what I've done because it's not a quiz. I've taken 2 bedrooms away. So now we only have 1 bedroom, bedroom 1 and bedroom 2. I've taken a bathroom away. What does it look like? Well, this looks like a buy-to-let, right? We all know what buy-to-lets look like. Typically, they look like that. And this one is going to have 2 LHA tenants in there. No more than 2. Otherwise, you'll be setting up an HMO. If you don't know the definition of HMOs, gov.uk. What else have I taken away from this house? Taken away the furniture. I've taken away the bills. I've taken away the council tax. And all that's going to increase my bottom line. And as I said already on the previous slide, each one of those tenants can claim 675 in Leeds. It does vary across the country. But you have to structure the claim and the tenancy correctly. If you don't believe me, here's some figures, which I'll come on to with a real case study shortly. Market rent for something like this in an average Mr. and Mrs. Average Road in Leeds, 2-bed terrace, unfurnished, 800. What would I get in Leeds? 1,350. How can I be so precise? The rates are published. It's £675 per person if you structure it correctly. Multiply that by 2. What cash flow? You can do the numbers. You're not going to be buying a penthouse in the most expensive part of Leeds. I wouldn't suggest it because your LHA rates actually won't change. That's just the way the government set it. So on something like this, in Leeds, because we're doing something in Leeds, I'd be looking at £800 positive cash flow on a buy-to-let. Seriously? Yeah, seriously. Seriously. But you don't have to believe a set of artificial figures from Leeds. This is a house I've had for quite a few years. I'm never going to win any awards at the Property Investor Show, 100%, okay? It's a vanilla buy-to-let. And I wanted to show you the pictures so you got a sense of this is what a typical LHA house in my portfolio looks like, okay? Unfurnished, but there's obviously a kitchen, living room, couple of bedrooms, and obviously a bathroom. I'm an accredited landlord. The council have and do check my properties, okay? I'm proud to be an accredited landlord, actually, because it means I'm setting a certain standard, okay? And everybody should be accredited. But here are the figures. As I said to you before, my target always is to have every property no money left in. So this has been no money left in for quite some time now. Must be coming on to 10 years. It's a 2-bed unfurnished buy-to-let, open market rent, 750. Look at the tenancy start date, 2016. It's coming on to 8 years. Why is that? Well, you know, even though it's illegal now, landlords don't want to house housing benefit tenants, DSS tenants, okay? Although you're not allowed to put that on your adverts anymore. No DSS, you can't say that. But the point is, majority of the landlords look the other way. So actually, these tenants are lucky to have found me because I actually don't look the other way. I say, if you fit the criteria, come on in. And they don't leave, usually. Sometimes things happen, but that's the same whether you're doing SA or HMOs or any property investment. So 2016, that's 8 years of uninterrupted cash flow, no in-between tenancy freshening up. Of course not. Yeah, they're living there. I don't know when they're going to leave. Hopefully they'll be there for another 8 years. And the current LHA rent, as I've just said, they've just been increased £1,100. So I've redone my figures because those new rates only came in April. That one's net cash flow on that is £700 per month. Remember, if you haven't got it already, there's no furniture in there. They have to bring their own. It's a buy-to-let. Bills are not included. I don't pay the council tax. It's just an unfurnished Magnolia vanilla buy-to-let. 2-bed in this case. Hope that made sense. What about Model 2? Well, that's a bit more complicated. Still got 2 claimants, but they're coming from one family. So here's a 3-bed house. You're going to need a 3-bed house, Model 2. Nottingham again. I've just done it this morning, actually, just to make sure it's as fresh as it can be. Just an average street, 3-bed house in Nottingham, market rent about £850. Okay, that's what we've got. What if I put 2 LHA claimants in from Model 2, one family, £1,200 is the rate. You can see, can you see the uplift? I mean, that's not the cash flow. That's just the uplift from market rent. Okay, in this case, £350. Now, if you had 4 or 5 of those, well, you'd be touching £1,400 net cash flow on top of your standard buy-to-let. So I don't know why people wouldn't look at something like this, because it doesn't cost me $120,000 to set one of these up. I guarantee it. Obviously, I try to buy it BRR, add value, but you know my refurbs are not 6 all-on suites, and I don't want them to be. Okay, if that's your model, great. All models work. It's just that sometimes the levels of entry in terms of the costs can be quite, you know, I mean, they make my knees shake sometimes when I see somebody's done a refurb on a 6-bed HMO costing 120 grand. It makes me weak in the knees. So let me give you an example of how this works first, then I'll show you a case study. So let's say there's a woman who is, I don't know, 45. We'll call her Mum. She's been living in a shitty property, a 1-bed in Nottingham, for example. The current rate for her entitlement is £550. That's the new rates. Her daughter lives down the road, half a mile down the road, and she's got a newborn, a baby. Daughter's on benefits, and she's living in an equally poor 2-bedroom house with a rogue landlord. Her 2-bed rate, which is what she's entitled to, 2-bed simply means that the daughter gets 1 bedroom and the baby is entitled to another bedroom. Okay, the rates are published. Okay, these are not made up. These are £650 for her. So they see this house because daughter says, Mum, I need you to help me look after the baby. So they want to move into this house, which I've just showed you. £850, very doable. But I'm going to be getting £1,200. So why would I take £850? I'm going to get £1,200. Where's the £1,200 come from? Well, look at the left. The mum can claim £550. The daughter with baby can claim £650. If I've done my sums right, that's £1,200, right? You just have to be able to add up. That's all it is. Is it hard to set up? Well, you have to find these tenants first. It's not easy. I did say to you, if you want easy, stick to your vanilla buy-to-let. This is not for you. But if you want that kind of cash flow, which I'm going to show you in a minute, and that kind of rent, on buy-to-let, there is nothing else out there really. Social housing sometimes I think starts to give you a little bit more, but I haven't come across many figures where social housing, where you're given to charity, will give you supercharged rents like this. They won't. Okay. They're giving you guaranteed rent, but often it's very close to the normal rates. Let's have a look at the case study. Again, I'm not going to be presenting this at the property investor shows anytime soon. It's yet another unfurnished buy-to-let. This time it's a 3-bed. I've had it for, this was actually the very first house I bought. Has that term BMV disappeared? I don't hear it very much now, but anyway, BMV was doing the rounds then when I trained with Simon, and this was the very first house I bought while I was training with Simon in 2008, and I've had it since. Nothing unusual there, but the figures are very unusual. It's a 3-bed, open market rent 850. Tenancy, they've been in there 7 years. Same family, as I said, and actually this case, it is the mum, and she has a daughter who has a child. And their entitlement, if you structure it correctly, is 550 plus 650, which is 1200. My net cash flow, when you've done all the numbers, remember this is infinite ROI anyway, is 700 pre-tax. So the question you might be asking yourself is, yeah, it sounds like a lot of work, Raj. Is it all worth it though? If you're thinking about this and you're going to set up one, don't do it. I wouldn't do it. Okay, too much work. I'll set up one. No, don't come to me. If you're thinking portfolio, 3, 4, 5, and you're thinking, actually, I don't want to get into the HMO space. I don't want to get into the SA space. I like buy-to-let. I like the way this works. And of course, I am helping in the sense that I'm housing tenants who are welfare benefit tenants. Okay, so that is, that's an additional benefit I get. It's only worth it, I think, if you're going to set up more than one, because it's quite a lot to learn. And I wouldn't want, it's like you setting up one HMO, then doing one SA. It's not what I advocate. I think you should stay a while and you should develop a bit of expertise in whatever sector it is that you're trying to, that's what I've done at least. So I'll give you a quick look at my portfolio. So that one's been running since 2013 on the LHA strategy. We've had more than one tenancy in there. I won't go into that today. Things happen, people leave. So these are the models I've been telling you about so far. Model 1, Model 2, 2013. That's been running since. That one's been running since 2015. More than one tenant type. More than one tenancy. That one's been running since 2016. Same tenants. 2016, same tenants, Model 2. 10 years this one's coming up to. So they're claiming a 4-bed plus a 1-bed. I mean, this will go over your head, okay, until you look at this a bit harder. I'm not a development kind of person. So when I had to put a partition wall, I was having palpitations because I do refurbs, absolutely. Kitchens, bathrooms, paint, that's been my add value to date in 15 years, would you believe? So this flat I've had since before I did the training. It's a very spacious 1-bed flat, okay? And a friend of mine who's local here near me also does the LHA strategy. He came to have a look at it. He said, you could sell it because it's a 1-bed flat. He said, why don't you just partition it off and create 2 bedrooms? And you can see it's not complicated. Stud wall, a door, it was done on the building reg, so it's all been done off and signed properly. So on the right-hand side, you can see what I've created. Yes, they've lost a bit of living room, a fair bit actually, but it's still, the diner area is still good enough for 2 sharers. And I'm marketing this right now. What was the rent on the 1-bed flat? Well, it would be 550. What would it be now? Well, it's 550 times 2, because that is the rate for a single person. So I'm looking for 2 sharers. I mean, if you've done HMOs, right, you'll know what I'm talking about here. 3 people in a house, 4 people in a house, 5, 6 or more, HMO. You have to restrict it to 2. Why? As I said earlier, if you put another one in, you're in HMO territory. Okay, so you shouldn't, unless you particularly want to do that model. Sometimes there's an Article 4 in place, stops you doing that kind of stuff. Will it work everywhere? Well, I don't know, because I haven't mapped the whole UK. So I can't say. But the figures are published, and you can go and assess it yourself. But I will show you a couple of cities where I have mapped it. I've mentioned Leeds. What fixation have I got in Leeds? Well, nothing really. My daughter got married. She's moved up to Leeds. So this is my son-in-law's property, his very first one. 2-bed terrace, 103k purchase. Would you believe it's been in conveyancing for 4 months? Don't get it. I don't know what they're all doing. Okay. It's just taking forever. Okay. I've given some top line figures there. The mortgage, I think he's got a rate of about 4.9% or something. Mortgage is about 350. Running costs is usually I allow about £100 for maintenance, plus a bit of insurance. The gross rent is slightly wrong. In Leeds, it's not 1,300, it's 1,350. Monthly cash flow, 220 to 250. I mean, that is amazing, isn't it? For a 2-bed, unfurnished property with no bills, projected ROI, it's very easy for you to do that. 30%. I mean, how's that even humanely possible? It is, if you know what you're doing. And this is one I did very recently. I think I saw Lee there. So this is the same one, Lee. Sorry about that. but I've updated it for another property. So this, look, we're not doing BRR here, just to keep things simple. I'm buying a property, as you can see in the picture below, it's ready to move into, just to keep the figures simple. I know we don't buy retail. That's not why you're using property filter. You're trying to find things that are below market value that you can add value to. For the sake of today, I've just picked one that I found on Rightmove not long ago, which is ready to move into, okay? Purchase price is 140. You can see I've worked the mortgage out, maintenance, insurance, 587. What about the rate? So in Birmingham, I could be wrong. This is B44. When I look, the market rent's about £1,000 a month. So that's not bad, £400 positive cash flow, just as a standard buy-to-let, which will give you an ROI of 11. Why would I want that when I could get 800? Because the rate in Birmingham for 2 sharers is £700 per person. So that's 1,400, 800 a month. ROI is going to hit 22%. Yeah, you can take screenshots of this, work it out. It's correct. Okay, it's correct. So you might be thinking, if it's that good, why isn't everybody doing it? Well, here's why everybody's not doing it. There are barriers to learning this. Why? Because there's the amount of information out there is very limited. The amount of support is zero. The reason for that is, if you look at HMOs, you look at SA or standard buy-to-let, you go on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, the podcast, YouTube, even YPN magazine, network meetings, that's all they talk about. That's all they talk about. The LHA strategy, which is part of buy-to-let, doesn't exist, okay? And if you're looking for high cash flow, correct me in Q&A if you think I'm wrong. Whenever you press the button for high cash flow, all the trainers, bar none, say HMOs and SA. I disagree. I disagree. The buy-to-lets disappeared because standard buy-to-lets won't give you the cash flow I'm talking about, but the LHA strategy will. And go back 12 years, yeah, a lot of them were talking about this, but it's not the easiest to set up. So most of the trainers I think out there have kind of just let it go because it's quite tough. I think that's the case. So this is the last slide. Get to know me a bit, okay? If you want some training, this is no hard sell here on the LHA strategy. You need to contact me in the first instance. If you want to get the ebook that I'm supposedly writing, written a bit, you can contact me as well. And actually what's taken over is the fact that I've just written I think it's a 3,000 word article for YPN. The June edition of YPN is actually bizarrely talking about maximizing rental income from buy-to-lets. And of course, the LHA strategy fits that. So that's coming out in June. But if you want an early copy of that before it hits your doormats, or you're not subscribing to YPN, then just get in touch. And as soon as we've proofread it, I've submitted it, I've written it. As soon as we've proofread it, ready for the magazine, if you just get in touch with me, I will send you a copy, and that will that's written. So a lot more information. There you go. All important information. There's an email address, website, link tree there, QR code, everything, smoke signals, a lot. I'll put everything as much as I can to get a hold of me. So get a hold of me, connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm not really on Insta. And I think that's it. That's my last slide.
All right, thanks so much. Feel free to leave the slide on presentation mode with your details so that people can,
sure.
If you want to copy something in the chat, feel free to do so as well.
Okay.
So thanks a lot. I took loads of notes, so that was really, really interesting, and lots of really good feedback in the chat as well. Some questions as well. So
I can start answering those.
Yeah. So Magdalena is asking. So are the tenant paying you directly, or is it going through the council and the council is paying you?
Okay, so the system's more complicated at the moment. If you know about this, there are 2 systems in play at the moment. One is the council, okay, and one is the Department of Work and Pensions, which administer something called universal credit. In the fullness of time, majority, I would say 90+% of people on the old legacy system will move over to UC. But because of delays in the software, then COVID, the government's well behind. But at some point, everybody will move over to universal credit. The only exemption I'm aware of, until Labour comes in, I guess, I don't know. Did I just say that? Oops, I shouldn't have done. Is that people who are on state pension stay on the housing benefit system. So they will never move to universal credit. That's the government's decision. At the moment, I do get paid direct by the council. I have one house that is set up with universal credit, which is a new system, and we got direct payment. But I'll be 100% clear, because as I said at the start, I'm not a BSer. I just tell it the way it is. It's, it's discretionary, is getting paid direct. But obviously me and my collaborators have worked out scripts and methodologies without doing anything illegal, obviously, because we're all kind of good landlords and stuff. And so far, none of us have actually met any objections from DWP Universal Credit to get direct payment, okay? But you have to present the case properly so that they use their discretionary, decision to say, yeah, we can pay them direct. That's kind of what happens. Is that clear? Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
John was asking. So the government can change the rules, on the rates, so they could increase. Can they decrease? Is there a risk here?
No. So what the government does is they don't believe in consumer price index for this. Okay, cleverly. So what they do, because as you know, if you're all property investors, the market rents have been going up, right, over the last 2 years. Okay, unless you've been hiding under a rock. But the government does not increase the LHA rates. So what they do, this is obviously strategic to save money, is they freeze the LHA rates and then unfreeze them when people like the NRLA and others, the charities, start lobbying. So the last time there was a big increase was 2020. And since 2020, market rents have gone up hugely. So most people who are claiming LHA housing benefit simply can't afford the houses because the market rents are so high. So the latest increase was the 1st of April 2024. When will the next increase be? Well, I don't know. Maybe, we should maybe predict it like the Apple iPhone. Maybe every 3 years there's a new release. I don't know. Maybe we could just do that. I don't know. They won't decrease it because that'll be going against the market rent data that they collect. I don't know when the next big increase would be. So I don't know.
Yeah. Ian is asking, do local authorities work with you to fill the rooms, and basically I think the wider question is, how do you actually find this combination of claimants, tenants? So
at the moment, Guillaume, there's 3 of us who are active, and we collaborate on knowledge and stuff, not JV partners, but we talk basically. We're all in, one of them is local here, actually, he's a friend of mine. So I've only ever got tenants by just filtering from normal advertising platforms. Because a lot of landlords advertise, a lot of private landlords advertise on Gumtree. A lot of these tenants seem to hang around on Gumtree. And I know most of you will say, oh, Gumtree, I don't want to advertise on that. But actually, that's my key portal. Okay. And the thing with Gumtree, if you didn't know it, it's a bit like Spare Room. If you don't refresh the advert, it's going to go to page 2, page 3. But to refresh the advert, Gumtree charge you a heck of a lot. Okay. So I have a pro account with Gumtree, which means that I can, what they call, bump up or refresh the advert every hour if I choose. So in my 10 years plus of doing this, I've got mine from the normal portals. A friend of mine who lives in Nottingham has got quite a few tenants because he's made contact with the housing team in the local council. And then the final collaborator has actually just set one up not so long ago where he actually got 2 tenants from a charity. Okay, but my own approach has been none of those. It's just been the portals. Okay, and then filter to see who fits model 1 and model 2, because they don't. And there's a lot of people who don't read the advert and they just contact you anyway. Single mums with 1 child. You're looking for 2 claimants. Okay, let's be clear about this. Okay, so that's kind of what happens. I want to answer Lee's question. I've just seen it. How do you avoid paying council tax as really HMO? No, it isn't. The definition of an HMO on gov.uk is 3 unrelated. This is not 3. This is 2. Okay, that is, if you go to gov, if you're looking, listen, if anybody's looking for definitions of HMOs, go to the government site, which is gov.uk, and it's in black and white. An HMO is 3 or more than 2, whichever way you want to, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's an HMO. If you're at 2, not an HMO. So I don't pay council tax. And most of these tenants get a massive exemption anyway. I think usually they pay 10, 15%, something like that. So I don't get involved with that. The bills, furniture, nothing. I'm providing them with the house and I'm going to set it up so I claim the right housing benefit amount. And that's how it works. Yeah. Is there any others that you picked up? I'm happy to
Yeah,
stay on here
lots
and
of
answer
it. Yeah,
these.
lots of it. So James is asking, so with the numbers you shared, this was assuming 75% loan to value on mortgages. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Rishi is asking, who pays for the damages? Do you have to pay for the maintenance and repairs? What do you have to get involved in and what not?
Okay.
And are the profits more? I think there's a typo here, so I'm not so sure. Are the profits being eroded with the tenant causing damages? And what's your experience with that?
So maintenance, well, obviously, if you've all got properties, you pay the maintenance, right? So I pay the maintenance. Okay. Obviously, I don't pay the bills because it's not an HMO; it's an unfurnished buy-to-let. And apart from that, it's a standard mortgage. It is a buy-to-let mortgage, as you might know if you've even explored social housing. You're going to pay 7.5%, 8% mortgage interest if you're going to give it over to a charity on a lease. Okay, maybe the rates are coming down a little bit, and there's only a handful of lenders. These properties are with mainstream lenders because they're buy to let. So, I mean, obviously, I've got some on low rates. Currently, my son-in-law is doing the one in Leeds, and I think I mentioned earlier, I think he's very close to 5% with Aldermore for that one. And so the mortgage is a little bit high, but that's just the state of play at the moment. So you just got to treat this like a normal buy to let, as any buy to let, except the type of tenant in there and the way you're finding them and structuring the tenancy agreement and the claim is targeted toward housing benefit. I mean, I'm not really sure how much clearer I can be than that. Are maintenance costs higher than normal buy-to-lets? Actually, they're lower. These tenants, bizarrely, don't say anything. If you get top-end tenants in your top-end HMOs, they're bitching and moaning about everything. Light bulbs gone. Somewhat worryingly, these guys just seem to live in the dark sometimes, okay, even though the electrics have tripped, which is not great. I don't think I mean, they hardly ring, to be quite honest. So if anything, my running costs are lower than your average buy-to-let even. Yeah, so that's what I would say for that.
You match with this 2+2 or the different strategies. So is there a minimum room size
No.
like you would have in HMOs? Or?
No, there isn't. It's a normal buy-to-let. Having said that, you'd have saw on that flat conversion I did the measurements carefully. I don't like single rooms. So I made sure that when I did the partition that way, I made sure that actually the second room, even though the living room got collapsed, I think from memory is about 8.5 square meters. So 8 square meters is the minimum standard here in Nottingham on HMO rooms. Okay, and not on buy-to-lets though. But obviously, when I did that split on that flat, I made sure that it wasn't suddenly a 5 square meter bedroom. Okay, it's not what I do.
Awesome. Darren is asking, are familiar or amendable are other letting agents, familiar with this?
No.
And with this idea?
No.
So you've got your own team, right? You manage this yourselves.
So the way we do it now, yes, when I started 10 years ago, and obviously nobody wants to do the day-to-day, it's unfortunate, but because agents are fairly busy, because market rents are very good, it's a very buoyant rental market. If I'm totally honest, they don't really need to touch LHA tenants, and they don't, which basically what that leads to is a lack of knowledge on universal credit. Okay. Now I'd love to be able to get a set of keys and say to the agent down the road, here you go, empty property, fill it like I've said, and then do the day-to-day management. They can do the day-to-day management because that's just a phone call to my maintenance team, which says the toilet isn't flushing. The first part, which is filling it, I'm afraid they can't. So what we've ended up here in Nottingham, certainly, and I'm obviously thinking of ways around it, but it's not been easy, is we've ended up with a hybrid model. So hybrid being I set it up, then they do everything like the day-to-day. So they do the property management, I do the tenancy management. That's how we've done it, okay? Because it is complicated. There's a lot of moving parts in universal credit. I've obviously been doing it for 12 years. So, and with my collaborators, I can quite quickly get to the bottom of whatever issue there might be. The agent will really, really struggle. So that's the best. I know that's not what people want to hear, and they want to outsource the whole lot and go and live in the Maldives. But unfortunately, we've not been able to outsource all of it. Outsource some of it, but not all of it. And, keep looking in case there is that agent. There might be somebody in a different part of the UK, like in the Northeast, where they have a higher than average percentage of housing benefit tenants. Castledean, for example, John Paul, who's there up in the Northeast. They have a lot of, so I'm sure John Paul as an agent up in the Northeast, he'll be very familiar with universal credit. But around here, No, they don't really need to house this kind of tenant, which is why there's such a big problem. Which is why I get 3 or 4 inquiries. I'm getting about 6 inquiries a day for that flat. Most of them are irrelevant, so there's a lot of sifting to do. I mean, I don't talk to anybody, but it's just, you know, copy and paste text to say, can you confirm that you fit model 1, model 2? For the flat, it's just model 1 because it's not big enough to do model 2. So it's just 2 sharers who are, you know, 35 and over. So that's. Is there anything else? I'm happy to answer some more.
Lots. Yeah, there's like 25 more pictures there, right? So
let me answer some of them. Let me answer them. Do mortgage lenders need to prove LHA? No, they outlawed discrimination against housing benefit a long time ago. So if a lender of yours is saying no, you need to report it to the government, because the government said they're not to discriminate. Okay, because they actually used to have in the T's and C's that you can't give an AST to HB tenants, housing benefit tenants, but that kind of went back there. There might be 1 or 2 lenders, I can't say. Some not very relevant questions. So
Melvin's asked a really good one. So it's one I had actually as well. So isn't there a difference between shared rates and
yes.
1-bed rates? Don't they need like the 2 exclusive rooms, and how do you make the difference? How do you actually do the sum between the different rates?
The lowest rate that somebody can get is called the shared accommodation rate, and it's for anyone who's under 35. Government rules. Check them out online. Okay. The 2+2, as I mentioned earlier, the exclusive rooms disappeared with the dark ages. But just like DSS, which disappeared in year 2000, we continue to use 2+2. I continue to call it the LHA strategy, Model 1 and Model 2. And we can carry on. You can see that flat. There is no 2 exclusive rooms in there. Okay. Mm-hmm. Bedroom 1, bedroom 2, there's a bathroom, and there's an open plan. So I clearly must know what I'm doing, okay, in terms of the legalities. No 2 exclusive anything really, to be quite honest with you. So it's changed. It's changed. Yeah, is that all right?
Yeah, all good, yeah.
Let's have a look at the others. I have a 5-bedroom terrace. Yeah, it will. You only need 2 or 3 bed, depending if you're doing Model 1 or Model 2. If you're buying something, why buy a 4-bed? You'll pay more. It won't get you any more LHA. So I would say 2 to 3 bed will fit Model 1 and Model 2, pretty much. Okay. Yep. If you want to stick to 1, because you don't want to confuse your poor brain, just buy 3 beds with 1 or 2 receptions, and then you can tick Model 1 and Model 2 all day long. You don't need anything bigger. You don't need 2 exclusive rooms. Nothing. Nothing there.
Vicky was asking, how do you find the tenants? I think we covered that. We've got Shilpesh asking, so what are the risks with this sort of strategy?
Biggest risk is if, I'm doing some training on this. As I said, I've got a cohort of 9 people. It's a small group. It's not volume training, okay? A lot more hand-holding, so there's live calls and all sorts of stuff, because that's how they will make it work, not by sitting on a 1-day workshop, okay? And I think they're beginning to appreciate it, because we're pretty much through the 6-week intensive training now. So, sorry, what? Just say that question.
There was more the risks around the strategy, I'm guessing. So what are the pitfalls basically of doing this?
So here's the way I look at rentals, which I've been doing for 15 years. Let's look at my student HMOs, okay? Students are typically 19. Are you going to do a credit check on them? Really? Seriously? They haven't got a credit history. So what's the point? Because normally we'd say, I'll do a credit check. So what's the risk mitigation for students? Guarantor. Normally a parent, okay? Housing benefit tenants, let's say, you're just looking at Nottingham GM, the Model 1, £1,100, and then you can charge 5 weeks equivalent of deposit. They're not going to have £2,500 hanging around, okay? So you've clearly got to come up with a system where you mitigate as many of the risks as possible, because they're not going to have impeccable credit history. They're not going to have a brain surgeon as a guarantor. So you have to mitigate. So I always try and take a guarantor. I always take the first month's rent in advance, but I don't take a deposit. I don't think they'll be able to, they don't have £2,500. But if anybody's going to move into that flat, which I've showcased, they're going to need £1,100. Sometimes they can borrow it from the council. Sometimes Department of Work and Pension actually lend it to them as a loan. So there are ways that they can get that £1,100, but they're not moving him for nothing. Okay, so clearly over the years, I've tried different things, and that's, come up with a system that works for me, where I haven't set the hurdle so high that no one can scale it. where I haven't set it so low that if you've got a pulse, I'll give you a set of keys. Okay. Somewhere in between is where my risk profile lies. Do I always get it right? No, but it's usually when I've lowered the hurdle far too much. Okay, maybe the house is sticking and it's been a month and I'm getting a lot of inquiries, but not the right ones. So usually that's when I've been bitten in the bum, where I've lowered the hurdle far too much, moved them in, and have to slap my hand and say that was a mistake. Okay, because they were trouble. Okay, and as you know, with the Renters Reform Bill and all the rest of it, you need to make sure you do that upfront vetting even more, because if Section 21 goes, then getting them out, evicting them is just going to be another level of difficulty. So what can you do? Well, you're going to make sure your upfront process is whiter than white, it's tighter than tight, okay? Because that's the response all of us landlords should be doing. So I don't always insist on a guarantor, but if Renters Reform Bill goes through and they abolish Section 21, absolutely 100%, no exceptions, where's your working guarantor? Somebody else has got skin in the game who's working with a reasonable job, so they're not going to want a CCJ, are they? They're not. If the tenant suddenly, starts misbehaving. That's my approach going forward, Guillaume.
Really interesting. Iman is asking a couple of questions. Are you able to claim capital allowances on refurbs? I'm guessing it depends on the projects.
Not for this. We're talking 2-3 bed.
Yeah.
We're talking 2-3 bed terraced houses. So I doubt it, but
yeah. Do you find that maintenance costs are higher than your normal buy-to-let? So no.
No.
I think
Yeah, answer that one.
Yeah, you mentioned it. So I'm not quite sure I fully understand this question from Jason here, but when would be the best time to set these tenants up? So I don't know if we're talking about seasonality of the year, and then does it take a long time to set these up?
Yeah, it can take time. My lowest has been 3 weeks. My longest has been 2 months. Why? Is it because the responses are not coming in? No, it's just that the right responses are not coming in. And I used to get really cold feet when I first started, because a couple of houses took nearly 2 months. Not the lack of inquiries, as I say, they just didn't fit model 1 and model 2. But actually, I'm okay with that now. Not okay with the fact that I'm having to wait. I'm okay with the fact now that I've got over a decade worth of experience, and that you saw the tenancies and how long they've been in there. Okay. You will make that money up super quick. Okay. I'm not saying it's ideal. I'd love to get them within weeks, but actually I've reconciled with the fact that they might be there for 6, 7, 8 years with that inflated LHA strategy rent. So I'll quickly make back what I think I've lost because it didn't get let out for 6 weeks, for example. Okay. And that's where I've got to.
And a really good question from Bolaji. So you mentioned about this mother, daughter, and granddaughter.
Yeah.
So aren't these then 2 tenants classed as joint tenants?
Yeah. You can set them up as joint tenants, and that's what I tend to do. As I said earlier, there are submodels of submodels of submodels. It's like students. Do you move them in individually, or do you move them in on a joint AST? Now, we prefer with students, we got 5 and 6 bed HMOs to move them on a joint AST. Okay, but sometimes the property's struggling to let. We'll let them out on single ASTs. Okay, you've got a business to run. You've got rooms to fill. You'll do whatever's necessary to get things filled, and that will depend on the market. So I've done that with student HMOs, and with the LHA stuff, I would do the same. But where possible, I try to get them on a joint AST. Okay, and so it's usually 2 people who know each other. You can do it the other way. Maybe my filter is too strict, but it's what's worked for me, and I will always insist that they bring the other person with them. Usually a friend or somebody like that. As I say, it's a small percentage that tick that criteria, which is fine. I mean, the adverts are kind of running on autopilot. I don't speak to anybody. It's just copy and paste, asking them to confirm what their ages are. Usual sort of qualification questions.
Honestly, I can see how there's a really interesting business opportunity. Like a bit like 10 years ago, there wasn't really any specialist letting agents for HMOs. There isn't a specialist letting agent for this, but you could go out there, create a machine that generate leads of such tenants, and then work with other landlord basically to fill their houses and manage the whole process. So it's very niche, and I can see this being very, very profitable, because you could go and work with landlords with specific properties in specific area, offer them maybe like a 20% uplift in the rent they get, And then as a letting agent, you could charge 20-25%.
Yeah, if there's somebody, it won't be me setting up as a letting agent. I've got
Yeah,
I've got my golf handicap to think about, and I don't want to take on too much. But if somebody else is on here, I've got that. Yeah, get in touch. I can collaborate with you, but it won't be a business model to source and set up. Yes, I'm helping my son-in-law in Leeds, and yes, I'm training a few people who are on quite an intensive kind of thing. But beyond that, I don't think I'm going to be, broadening this out.
But I mean, there's got to be someone on this call maybe who's got a story, or they have some family member who are on benefits, or this is their childhood, and then this is the hustle they've come from, and now they want to, they see this as a business opportunity in the same way. They need to love, the model, and they need to love the idea of helping these people, and I'm sure that's really interesting. So there'll be some hopefully sparking some ideas to some people. Darren is asking, does this work in Scotland? Do you know, Raj?
I don't know, actually. I mean, as I said earlier, I've mapped a few areas, particularly where I've been giving talks, like for PIN, for example. Yeah. So, Lee was there at Birmingham. So when I speak in a particular city, I'll do the mapping, if you want to call it that, and have a look at what the LHA rate is. Like I showed, B44 was an example from Birmingham. And obviously, I've spoken in Leeds, so I did it there. I spoke in North Manchester a couple of months ago. I did it there. Wherever I speak, I'll take the extra effort to show them local case studies and what's possible. Okay. But beyond that, Scotland, Wales, I haven't really looked, to be quite honest with you. But the LHA rates are published, gov.uk, just type in LHA rates. You can have a look yourself. And as long as you can add up, one bed plus, there's the one bed rate plus the one bed rate, as I've said, because they've got to be at least 35 to get that higher rate. Otherwise, the government will shut them on the shared accommodation rate, which I don't think is worth doing. I think it's too low. The shared accommodation rate is more designed for people who are on benefits living in HMOs, to be quite honest with you. A room in an HMO, that's really where it's at.
Are we okay, Raj, to stay like 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure. There's always a ton of questions because it's so unfamiliar to people. I'm used to it.
It's really cool and valuable. Idris is asking, so in the same way, could couples on separate benefits come under this model in a 2-bed, for example?
If they're lying, yeah.
All right, okay.
The ruling from the government is that if they're couples, life partners, same sex or different sex, there is a rate for couples, and it's the 1-bed rate, same as for 35-year-old. Okay. Now, if somebody wants to play a game and say to the couple, split, so that you can each claim separately, it's not what I do. I don't know whether, I always ask the question, are you friends or whatever? And unfortunately, there's no way to establish, unless they're married, I suppose you could ask for the marriage certificate, nowhere to really establish somebody's in a relationship or a couple or not. I simply ask the question, are you a couple or aren't you? And if they say they're not, then I will look that they've actually got separate housing benefit claims, going on. Because if it's a couple, they'd only have one housing benefit claim because they're a couple. Yeah, does that make sense? They're not two individuals. We're talking about two individuals here, okay? But if they tell me they're friends, but they're actually a couple, I have no way of validating that. No way at all.
Magda is asking, do the tenants get two separate contracts? I think you said they were joint tenancies. So.
Where possible, that's what I try and do. But as I say, you can do both. There are benefits, pros and cons to everything, whichever way you set up contracts. There's never it's never this is the right way. That's an option. They're both options, to be quite honest.
Johnny's asking, do you have any horror stories, like any times where this went wrong or failed or could have overdone voids?
Yeah, I do a couple. I'm happy to share them because anybody who says, no, this is so squeaky clean, just like my HMOs, just like my SA, that never has any problems. Well, show me somebody who says that, as they say, and I'll show you a liar. Okay, they all have challenges. I've had a couple. One of them is where possible, where my houses are, I know the neighbours because I will not have my tenants disrupt the neighbours. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm accredited. I don't want to be blacklisted. Okay, so the neighbours to the houses that I've got always have my contact details. And in one instance, two friends who moved in all look fine, and we do credit checks, we do vetting, but you can't check for everything. And within a few months, the late night parties started. Okay, police were coming out at 3 a.m. in the morning because complaints from neighbours. To the left-hand side of the property is 73-year-old Sam, who's a friend, who puts out my bins if the property's empty, who brings them back in, okay? I'm not having Sam being subject to that, okay? So I did warn the tenants. I said, not going to accept this. It just carried on. I had no choice. Reluctantly, I did what is the normal process, which is to serve Section 21 and start again, okay? Because that's the rules I set, okay? Live and let live, okay? Nobody should be hassling the other person. So that was one. Trying to think of anything else. Yeah, there's been fallouts. There's been fallouts where two moved in, and then within a year or two, you know, look, people have arguments, right? People have arguments in HMOs, right? Don't get on with him. He's never washing his mugs. Blah blah blah. I'm out. I'm going. It happens, okay? But generally, these guys, generally, because you can only generalize with these things, they stay for years, which is well, you know, when you really work out the true cost of churn, where, you know, professional tenants in buy-to-lets might be staying for 18, I don't know what the industry average is there, even 2 years. And, you know, some of these have been there for 10. I can tell you, I've done no refurb apart from like a kitchen replacement. If they want to paint the room, be my guest, okay? Because I'm not doing it with all your belongings there. Some of them have changed carpets. Obviously, I can't go around doing that because you need an empty property to change the carpets. And, you know, quite often these people, I won't be cruel to them, but they've got a lot of clutter. Okay, they've got a lot of clutter, and I'm not having my contractors have to move all that just to change. So I said, if you want to change the carpet, change the carpet. Okay, and they just pay for it, and that's what I've tended to do. Any maintenance? No, I've got my maintenance teams fully insured, so they can't have John down the road who's a friend come and do the plumbing. I won't allow it. Okay, because my contractors are all properly insured. So that's the level I operate at. Absolutely.
Can you take rent guarantees on these?
Say again?
Can you take rent guarantees? You know, some agents offer these where...
I don't think so. I don't think so, because a lot of these rent guarantees from memory, you know, the hurdle's quite high, okay? Yeah. Impeccable credit history, and as I've mentioned earlier, as I mentioned earlier, it's they don't. I still do the credit check. Won't go into it today. If you find something on their credit history, like a CCJ, then one of the conditions that you can use, because somebody was asking about direct payment before, when they apply for your house, you can say, there's a CCJ, they can't manage their money, which you're forcing the DWP, the UC, to try and pay you direct. So you're looking for evidence which says actually they can't manage their money, and that's why it's very valid to do a credit check, because if you find something, that kind of gives you a bit of,
so that you get paid direct, basically. So
well, it's, you know, you're kind of stacking it. That's the best way to do it. You're stacking it. The tenant's going to write when they apply to come into your house. I won't go into today, but the universal credit system there's an online journal. So we give them scripts that they're going to put in their journal to say, you know, I can't manage my money. I'm suffering from my mental health. I won't be able to manage the rental payment, blah, 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 blah. I'm fearful I'll lose my tenancy and get evicted, because they're making the case to tell the UC to pay me direct. And actually, I've been asking tenants for 12 years, would you like to sort out the housing benefit and pay it to me? And I've not had one say, no. They said, why can't you just have it? I said, well, because the government says I can't, okay, because they want to empower the tenants. They don't want it. They don't want the housing benefit component at all, okay? It's just that the government's forcing it down their throat, and we're trying to, I suppose, push back against that. I think the system is changing and they're becoming softer. And why is that happening? Well, there's no houses, you see, Guillaume. That's the problem. There's no council houses. Landlords are saying no to housing benefit tenants. And slowly but surely, the government is starting to loosen up on some of the strict criteria that they had, particularly, say, direct payment. So I live in hope that eventually one day it'll be a choice where tenant says, yep, tick that box, and it just comes. But at the moment, we have to do what we can.
What happens when they start working and they can no longer claim?
It's means tested. So it's a means tested benefit, is housing benefit. So what that means is it depends what they're earning when they're working. Okay, so it will reduce, and they'll have to top up the rent. So let's say they're getting 550 and they start working part-time and they're earning over a certain amount, rule set by government, and suddenly instead of the 550 they were getting in full, they're only getting 450. They'll have to top up, you know, add the other extra 150. But to be fair, that's how it exists anyway. Because if I tell you what the 2-bedroom terrace rate here is in Nottingham, the rate is 650, and I showed you earlier the cheapest property in Nottingham is 750. So any tenant who's on benefits is going to have to add another 100, 150 quid even now. Okay, so it's not like, you know, housing benefit, the government is covering everything. So a lot, and it is hard for tenants because the bills have gone up, food costs have gone up, and they're having to top up from their money to live on to put a roof over their head. So the government have got it not right yet, you know, in certain categories, and that's just the way it is, I'm afraid. Anything else?
Shilpesh is asking, how would this work in like southeast or higher value area? And I think we had a similar question from Patrick.
Yeah.
I think if you do the basic numbers, tells me that probably not. You can, but why would you?
It's funny. I think it will, but you have to do the analysis. Like, you know, I mean, you got a deal calculator. Yeah. So all I would do, southeast, pick a town, go onto the government's website, find out what the LHA rate is for the 1-bed. Now, obviously, like you do normal deal stacking, how much is that property going to cost? Forget BRR for a minute. How much is that property going to cost? What's 75% loan to value going to be at that? Like I stacked before, 5%. How does it compare to market rent? I don't know the London prices, but let's say you're getting, I don't know, a 2-bed flat, you're getting £2,000 a month just on the open market. And if you did this approach, you're getting 2,100. Well, I wouldn't do this. What, for an extra 100 quid? No. And for me, it's got to be a minimum of £300 uplift. Otherwise, I won't touch it. Okay, I just don't think it's worth it. So that's how you can do the deal stack and do the analysis and then make a decision. But don't always look on the money side, because you might say, oh, this is only £300 more. Don't ever lose sight of the fact that these guys might be there for a decade. Okay, 6, 7, 8 years. And that is worth something. That's worth something. Okay, with no voids. That's worth a lot. It's worth a lot to me. So it's not just monetary, it's the fact that they're not leaving. Okay, which is actually what my intention is. I'm not chaining them to the bed or anything, but obviously I'm a good landlord, repairs get done. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? Okay, yeah, where are they going to go?
Right.
Excellent.
Thank you. So there's lots of other questions, but I feel like we've covered these already. So do you have any sort of closing sentiment for today? So
yeah, I would just say to people, follow me on social media. You'll see me writing about it. Contact me, because obviously I've spoken here fairly quickly with sets of slides. I don't send out my sets of slides because I don't want people changing them, etc. If you message me, and I'll grab some email addresses from people. If you want that article, that's definitely coming out in June. I've written it. Sometimes, reading through it slowly, okay, and I think it's about 3,000 words, so it'll with 3 case studies in there, including the one in Leeds, because that's not happened yet. Conveyancing is still, the offer was accepted in just before Christmas, so I don't know what's going on there. I need to chase my son-in-law. So yeah, just contact me, and I'll be more than happy. Even if you're not a subscriber to YPN, I'll send you the article as soon as I've got a proofread version. It will be out in the first week in June, obviously, if you're a subscriber, but I'm sure it'll be available as a PDF to me in the next 2-3 weeks. So I'll be happy to ship that out if people want to just take their time, read around what I've written, and then, combine it with the notes that they might have made from today. So final words I would say is, don't believe the lies. HMOs and SAs are not the only high cash flowing approach. I've got a portfolio of 7 of these, and at the peak, I was generating something like 2,200 more than the average buy-to-let. None of them have been converted to anything apart from buy-to-let. My broker, Morgan Stewart, who's a good guy, wouldn't have it. Okay, my tax accountant, Stephen Fay, would certainly not have it that I was doing anything other than by the book, okay? And everything's done by the book, okay? So just open your minds up a little bit. This is a great approach for buy-to-lets, but you're gonna have to work for it.
Right, thank you so much. That was quite really, really interesting. Thank you. Really appreciate it. I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you all of you for joining us today on today's Deal Final Corner. So do reach out to Raj, connect on social media, have a bit of a chat with him if it's something you want to pursue. In the meantime, do visit propertyfilter.co.uk, log on to your Property Filter account, check out the deal blueprint where you can define your goldmine area, engage with motivated sellers, assess properties in seconds, load your pipeline and make deals, have an endless supply of deals, join the top 1% and become a high achiever deal finder. I hope you enjoyed today's Deal Finder Corner. I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers. Bye.